In last year's review of the 5K iMac, we told you guys to wait until next year. And if you're one of the people who did, congratulations, because the 2020 5K iMac was worth the wait. So let's get right into this review. We've been using the $2,300 model for about a week while we've been patiently waiting for the high-end iMac with the new 10-core CPU and the 5700 XT graphics card to get delivered. And during all of our testing of this iMac, we've realized that this less expensive model is so good that for the first time ever, we're actually recommending this one for a lot of people. But before we get into why this iMac is so much better this year, and on the other hand, why some people should actually avoid this 2020 iMac despite the massive improvements, I want to first talk about why we told you guys to skip last year's iMac. Even though it outperformed the $5,000 iMac Pro in many of the common tasks that we do on a daily basis, while also being over $2,000 less expensive, there were 3 reasons why we told you guys to wait. The first was the fact that the ports did not change at all. It still came with the slow SD card reader, and there wasn't an option to get a 10GB Ethernet port, even though Apple added it to the less expensive Mac Mini. And thankfully, we now have that option on the 2020 iMac, and the SD card slot now supports much faster UHS-II transfer speeds, but it would have definitely been nice to have a couple of extra Thunderbolt 3 ports. The second reason was the fact that the 2019 iMac was the only Mac that didn't come with Apple's T2 chip, and that was very important because it caused the 2018 15-inch MacBook Pro to destroy the iMac in terms of HEVC video editing, even though the MacBook was significantly less powerful in terms of raw performance. And now we finally have that T2 chip. And not only that, but the 2025K iMac now comes with AMD's Navi-based graphics, which come with their own hardware accelerators for HEVC footage, as well as allowing us to connect not 1, but 2 of Apple's 6K Pro Display XDRs. And the last reason was the lack of a redesign after 8 long years. And while the iMac obviously didn't get redesigned this year, at least Apple gave us a 1080p webcam, which definitely looks much better than before. So a lot of our issues with the 2019 iMac were thankfully fixed with this year's model, but some unfortunately weren't, like the lack of a redesign, which is very important to a lot of people. So I'm going to talk about that, as well as the significance of Apple switching to their own Apple Silicon Macs later on in this video. But how about we start with the good news first? The 2020 5K iMac comes with a few very important features that make it so much better than last year's iMac, including the switch to Intel's latest 10th gen processors and a few cherry on top features that I mentioned earlier, like the updated ports, the 1080p webcam, and a couple of display features. So let's get into those. Apple is now offering a nano texture glass option for $500, which is basically a high-end way of getting rid of glare and reflections on the display without messing with the colors or the contrast, and other reviewers have been loving it. But we don't recommend it for most people since we've personally never had any major issues with reflections, and we think that the $500 would be much better spent on different upgrades. Another new feature is the addition of Apple's True Tone technology, which automatically adjusts the white balance of the display to match your surroundings, which could be helpful if you're using it at night, but we don't recommend using it while editing photos or video since it can throw you off while color grading. And interestingly, the 2020 iMac is the first one ever that supports HDR video playback. But other than that, you won't be able to tell this year's iMac from last year's model. It's really what's on the inside that counts, so let's get into that. We initially ordered the higher end iMac with the brand new 10-core CPU and the top of the line 5700 XT graphics card, but we were disappointed to see that it wouldn't ship for another 2 weeks, so we did something that we've never done before. We ordered another one, which is what this review is all about, and we couldn't have done it without support from you, our viewers. So thank you guys for subscribing and ordering our Apple product merch like this t-shirt and our new mask right here for from our merch shelf down below. Thank you guys. This iMac is the $2,300 model with a 3.8 GHz 8-core CPU, the 5500 XT graphics card with 8 gigs of VRAM, and a 512 GB SSD, which actually comes included this year compared to having to pay $100 for it last year. So that's definitely a plus. And as far as the RAM, we left our iMac with only 8 GB because Apple lets you upgrade it yourself without voiding the warranty, and it only takes a couple of minutes. So instead of paying Apple $600 for 32 gigs, we bought a 32 gig kit on Amazon for only 120 bucks, and if you want to do the same, we'll have links down below. What really impressed us was that Apple pushed this 8-core CPU to its limits, allowing it to use up to a massive 161 watts of power compared to only 120 watts with last year's 8-core i9 iMac. And instead of running at a stabilized clock speed of 3.75 GHz, this one ran at a consistent 4.45 GHz. This allowed this year's $2,300 iMac to destroy last year's high-end iMac and even the $5,000 iMac Pro in terms of Cinebench R20 CPU stress test. And then for graphics power, like in Unigine Heaven's gaming test, this iMac was nearing the performance of those two iMacs at a much cheaper price. Now those were just benchmarks. Where it really gets impressive is when you start looking at real-world performance, like for photo editing with Lightroom and video editing with Final Cut Pro 10. The iMac destroyed a similarly priced 16-inch MacBook Pro in terms of exporting in Lightroom Classic, and it was right behind the iMac Pro, which is really impressive. But for video editing, this iMac absolutely killed both of those machines in almost every single test. The only area it was succeeded by the iMac Pro was for C200 RAW exporting, since it's very graphics heavy and the iMac Pro has more raw graphics power. But of course, you can easily upgrade the graphics on this iMac if you have some extra cash, and it'll still be well below the price of even a used iMac Pro. Now what makes this year's iMac really special is the addition of the T2 chip and Navi-based graphics, so let me show you how important that is. Last year's iMac got absolutely killed by the 16-inch MacBook Pro in terms of HEVC video editing because it lacked the T2 chip. So we actually recommended the MacBook Pro for a lot of people, but this year, the iMac wins in basically every test thanks to that chip. And the Navi-based graphics now have new hardware accelerators that can decode 4K HEVC at up to 90 FPS instead of the T2 chip's 60 FPS, and 1080p video at 360 FPS. And it can even decode 8K video so you can watch it on YouTube without putting any kind of stress on your processor. Now you might be asking, why does HEVC video editing matter? Well, H.264 is currently the most widely used standard video format, but HEVC, or H.265, is quickly becoming the new standard because it gives you the same video quality while using significantly less storage space. In fact, your iPhone now defaults to recording in HEVC video format and HEIF photo format. And Canon's brand new EOS R5 camera records its highest quality video using HEVC. And Sony's brand new A7S III camera supports HEVC recording in any mode, which is one of the reasons why Max ordered not one, but 3 of those cameras for us to use. And because these new 2020 iMacs are so good in terms of HEVC editing, we ordered 2 of them. This model to replace our editor Angelica's iMac, and the higher end model to replace my $5,000 iMac Pro. Now, if the 2020 iMac didn't have an option for a 10 gigabit Ethernet port, I would 100% stick with the iMac Pro until the larger Apple Silicon Mac came out. So basically, we've just established that these new iMacs are by far the best Macs we've seen in years in terms of performance. However, there's the Apple Silicon Mac switch, which I'll get into in just a minute, and there's also a chance that Apple will release just one more Intel-based iMac Pro before the end of the year. Now you might be asking, why? Who in their right mind would buy an Intel-based iMac Pro knowing that Apple Silicon is coming soon? Well, the only way I can make sense of it is if Apple makes it so good that high-end developers will be swept off their feet. So if the iMac Pro does in fact get refreshed, it'll most likely come with AMD's big Navi graphics card, it'll come with Intel's recently leaked 10nm Ice Lake Xeon chips with up to 28 cores, it'll come with Wi-Fi 6, and most importantly, it'll be the very first Apple product to come with a mini LED display. This is actually what I predicted in a video I posted on June 11th, based on claims from analyst Ming-Chi Kuo that Apple will release an updated 27-inch iMac Pro in the fourth quarter of 2020, which means no redesign, as well as packing an Intel processor. So hopefully I don't totally fail on that prediction. But if it does get refreshed with a mini LED display, big Navi graphics, and new 10nm Xeon chips, you can bet that people are going to be buying it despite the Apple Silicon Mac transition. But it's also going to be priced at least $5,000. So for a lot of you guys that aren't high-end developers, it really doesn't make sense. So let's finally get into the most important topic for this review. Apple switched from Intel CPUs to their very own ARM-based custom silicon chips. The great thing about those future Macs is that they'll have all the great hardware accelerators, like the T2 chip, built into the main SoC, or system on a chip. This means that even the lower-end Macs will handle HEVC video editing very well. In fact, our 2020 iPad Pro handled Canon's unconventional 422 format perfectly well, while our $15,000 Mac Pro struggled. And I can guarantee that the brand new family of Apple Silicon chips will be a whole different beast compared to the A12Z chip in the iPad Pro, likely packing hardware acceleration for a variety of different formats. And those chips will also come with Apple's custom neural engine and machine learning accelerators, which you just can't get on an Intel-based Mac. And I'm almost 100% sure that Apple will implement the same hardware accelerators from their Mac Pro's Afterburner card into the higher-end Apple Silicon Macs. So basically, those new Macs are going to handle every Apple app including Final Cut, Logic Pro, Xcode, and more, and they'll likely do it better than the previous Intel-based versions of those Macs. And what's really reassuring is that Apple has been working directly with Adobe and Microsoft for months now, making sure that not one, but all of their apps will be running natively on Apple Silicon. So if you're like us and you mostly only use those apps, then Apple Silicon Macs are going to be great for you, especially since they'll be totally redesigned and fresh. So it may be a good idea for you to avoid the 2020 iMac and wait for the Apple Silicon model. But if you use other third-party apps, I'm honestly not sure how well they'll work during this transition period. And of course, boot camp support is going away. So if you're a Windows 10 gamer, waiting for Apple Silicon is a bad idea. Now the biggest dilemma we have right now is that a lot of people like the 27-inch iMac and not the lower-end iMac. And I'm 100% certain that the redesigned Apple Silicon iMac that's been rumored to come later this year or early next year is actually going to be a replacement for the 21.5-inch iMac. And I've been telling you guys that for months now. And it's been basically confirmed by the fact that Apple, for the first time ever, updated the 27-inch iMac without making any real change to the 21.5-inch iMac, except for ditching the hard drive. So we should expect a totally redesigned 24-inch Apple Silicon iMac probably within the next 6 months. And I actually have a pretty good idea of what that's gonna look like, and I'm gonna make a video on that very soon, so subscribe right now if you wanna see that. But as for the 27-inch iMac getting redesigned with a larger display and an Apple Silicon chip, it'll probably be at least another year until that gets released, or maybe even longer. So you definitely could wait for that, but you can't spend your whole life waiting to buy something, because there will always be more leaks and rumors. So just like Dave Lee said in his review, if you need an iMac right now, you buy one right now. And this 2020 iMac absolutely kills in terms of performance, especially for what we need them for. So that's why we bought 2 of them, even though we plan on buying the Apple Silicon models on day 1. And we're extremely excited to test the performance of the 10-core model, which is going to be delivered this Thursday. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this review, and if you did, go ahead and click the circle above to subscribe, and be sure to check out our Apple product merch down below. Thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.